if we have a look at the types of information that a business may not want to share, it could be we're getting everybody into a meeting. Everyone's invited, maybe it's a sales meeting, for example. But maybe as part of that meeting, there's part of that agenda only needs to be speaking to certain guests, maybe that pop in for part of the meeting. If we're recording that meeting and we're summarising that, for example, and looking to share with attendees, maybe some of that meeting may only be wanting to be shared with some attendees, for example. So thinking about how you're structuring a meeting, whether it's a board, a sales team, a HR, whatever it might be, if you're looking to record, summarise notes, etc. Okay, these things potentially can then be distributed to people that you wish to, which helps to speed up processes, but it can also perhaps have a security and a privacy consideration as well. So really important that we're thinking about what information we're sharing, and it doesn't have to be something that's a recorded video, for example. It could be documents that you choose to expose to an AI tool set to allow us to, again, automate a process or similar. And with that information, that might be, it might be private, it might be intellectual property, it might be something that would give your business an advantage to a competitor. So it's really important that information doesn't leave the controls that should be in place for that organisation, that the governance around your data stays in place, and we're not inadvertently sharing information that we wouldn't want to in a deliberate manner.
So, Alan, what's the difference between ChatGPT and Copilot, as an example?
So, for ChatGPT, it's an example of one of the many open standards where we're looking at sharing information. Maybe that's a little bit more publicly available, or in some cases it might be a little bit more aged with the information that's being shared there. With Copilot, as an example, and again, there are many Copilots depending on the product from a Microsoft perspective that we're talking about.
But for our typical customer,
yeah.
How does it affect
for
them?
a typical customer, what you're looking at there is sharing information that's for your business within your Microsoft tenant, for example. If you're working with a Word document, or you're working with something that's in a Teams repository, that's the sort of information that you would be looking to expose for Copilot to be able to summarise for us, for example, or to do something with. Within the Microsoft technology suite, if you're looking at Microsoft 365 and things like Purview and other technologies that are within that portfolio, they also have the ability for you to do things like define what the information is, if it's a document, for example. Is it something that should be protected or have some other classification, for example, around that? So you can then put some rules around what information is able to be shared, whether it be to certain team members or parts of your business, or perhaps even if you want to put restrictions around whether that can be shared externally to the business as well.
Alan made a really good point before. So looking at the difference between ChatGPT and Copilot. The first one is public. So anything that you put out there or put into it gets released to the public. And there was a really big case earlier this year where a major manufacturer of a phone, their actual engineers decided to check their source code and decided to check it. So they checked it, and unbeknownst to them, their source code actually went public. We're putting this into Copilot, you actually got that in your own bubble within your Microsoft tenancy. So it does not leave your organisation. And that is the key number one differentiator between ChatGPT and Copilot. Look, it's a very big open source issue, right? You've got your public listed, ChatGPT and the other ones that are out there. Anything that they put in there is in public domain. Compared to where Copilot, anything you put in there, you actually held that in your bubble within your Microsoft tenancy. It's very similar to the likes of running Dropbox versus ShareFile. Dropbox, anything that you put into Dropbox is owned by Dropbox, not by yourself. You put it into ShareFile or OneDrive from Microsoft, it's then under your tenancy, you've got complete control. They're the two things that you've got to look at, control and security.
So guys, we know that in the industry right now, in most organisations, there's still a lot of Windows 10 out there. Right? Tell me, what are people going to do with this Windows 10 problem where it goes out of support next year?
Yeah, I think that's a big problem that a lot of organisations are either starting to work through, maybe not aware of, or are obviously working on what their plans are. So it's a big problem for organisations if they are unaware that they could be unprepared for. So, we ran an event just recently, and part of the discussion there was the number of devices. One of the things that we're regularly talking about is moving to Windows 11 to be able to support using things like Copilot and standardising our customers' EUC environments to be able to take advantage of some of the new features that Microsoft are releasing. But Windows 10 is reaching end of life in October in 2025, and there's approximately, based on information from Microsoft, 5.4 million devices that are running Windows 10 today, and a huge number of those are actually not able to be upgraded to support Windows 11. The hardware itself is just not compatible to do so, which is potentially a risk, because there's also a scenario where not enough devices are coming in to do a complete refresh of that suite of laptops, PCs, etc., that customers maybe need to refresh as part of their fleet.
Yeah, I heard that Australia's only bringing something like 1.7 million computers in next year into the country.
Something like that, based on information we've heard, Steve.
Yeah, that's a bit short of the 5.4 million that
that's
are
right.
running Windows 10 and potentially can't run Windows 11.
Yeah, which is a real challenge. So not only do we have a potential support consideration in terms of the devices themselves running an operating system that runs out of support. It's how do we deal with that? It's also what's the lead time on the equipment, and what other options do we potentially have as a customer to maintain support, which is obviously really important to ensure that we're able to look after the end users, and if they have an issue, we can support the device or support the applications, etc., that they're running. But also be able to perhaps also ensure that we can take advantages of the new features, etc., that Windows 11 can provide to those end users as well, such as Copilot and having a supported platform moving forward. So for example, Steve, one of the customers that we've been working with for a long period of time, came to us. They had a similar challenge here that we've just been talking about, where their fleet of devices was reaching end of life, and what can they do basically for their particular scenario. And as part of that, we worked through with them, looking at things like lead time on equipment. What's the cost of replacing that fleet of devices that are running Windows 10 today? What are their options? Do they consider paying for extended support, which is a potential option, but there's obviously a cost and other things to consider there as well. But we're also, as part of the relationship we have with that customer, we work with them in other areas of their broader end user compute portfolio. So what we're able to do in their case is we're able to extend the life of those existing devices by replacing the Windows 10 operating system with a hardened Linux-based platform on the end devices that's able to be centrally managed and extend the life of the physical hardware. So we're able to use their existing investment they've also got in Citrix technologies as well, and provide them with an up-to-date, supported and secure desktop, but also extend the life of that hardware, which for them has meant we've been able to achieve significant savings. A small investment up front, because we've had to obviously put some technologies in place to refresh and replace what's on those devices and ensure that they're able to be supported and managed and so forth. But a pretty quick transition, and we've been able to extend that life. It could be another 5+ years of the hardware, which was already obviously in use for some time. But end user experience is great, hardened endpoint, less to support, and of course make sure that they're able to run a supported operating system to support their application and end user needs.
And how much money did this client end up saving by doing it this way?
I think, Craig, you've got the details.
So
there.
when we did the comparison for the customer, so for an outlay of about $350,000 for 1,000 PCs to be refreshed. We were able to save them over $7 million for those 1,000 PCs over a 5-year period. And that's just on the hardware and the basic software costs. That's not putting in any of the other soft costs that you have, where you've got 15 different, operating, or 15 different products that are just sitting there on the operating system, like CloudStrike and antivirus and all that sort of stuff that you don't need anymore on this hardened Linux kernel.
So say that again. So for less than $500,000, we saved
For less
them.
than $500,000
Yeah.
over that 5-year period, we're saving them $7 million over 5 years,
Pretty good.
which is a massive saving. And going back to a point that Alan made just before, going from Windows 10, if you're not to Windows 11, you're then going into an unsupported platform with Windows 10. Now that raises a bigger question with the likes of cyber insurance. Now, we're doing a lot with cyber insurance, and everyone has to have cyber insurance because of what goes on these days. But the biggest problem is the insurance companies aren't paying out anymore if you've got unsupported platforms, because that is one of the things that they'll say, you've got an unsupported platform or unsupported software. We're not paying out. We're seeing that more and more. So companies have to make sure that they're running software that is up to date and
On a supported platform.
on a supported platform.
Yeah. I think that's the other thing that we're also helping customers with